We cannot have people over 50 stating that within the age of 18 and 25 do not have a voice.
Indeed, protest is a right. It's anchored in the Constitution, but it's not the only way to advocate for change.
I had to use my power in service of them. And that's what we have to do. Get out the way, let them lead, and then protect them and serve them in ways that are going to benefit all of us.
Yeah. If the people who matter do not hear, then building capacity in these youths to actually lead that change. Welcome to Politikali Konekted, a podcast on everything politics and governance in Kenya and Africa. Here we unpack the complexities of people, policy, and power. I'm your host, Dan Angao, and in today's episode, we have a different kind of episode where we can see that we're on a panel, but a panel of really distinguished people in their fields and also from different parts of the world, because we're going to talk about dialogue, the art of dialogue. So with me, we have from the very end there, we have Zion Obeten from Nigeria. And next to him, we have Amara Chineme from Kenya. And next to me, we have Dwayne Wharton from the United States of America. So welcome to Politikali Konekted, guys.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to have this conversation because here at Politikali Konekted, we really emphasize or we really hold strong the importance of conversation to change minds and to make decisions for a better country or even continent. So I'd like us to first introduce ourselves. Let the audience know who you are, what you do, and how we got here now, sitting on this panel. So we could start with Zion there.
All right. Thank you so much, Diana, for having me. It's such a privilege. My name is Zion Obeten from Nigeria. I would say I wear several hats. So I'm the founder of Z Learning Annex, is a nonprofit institution that brings young people together to help them, first of all, discover themselves and develop their talents and leadership skills, and also deploy those skills in their immediate communities for social impact, for economic prosperity. And I do that through the collaborative efforts of other experts, industry leaders, where we bring them into our platform to speak to these young people, to mentor them, to help put them in the right direction. So that's one part. Another part is that I'm a capacity building trainer, where I facilitate soft skills trainings for both people in the rural and urban areas. We help them to acquire skills that make them relevant in the workplace and also in their businesses. And then I do business advisory services rather, for young entrepreneurs. So we are called the Business Development Service Provider with Enterprise Development Center, who are in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. So we help these young female entrepreneurs to chart their businesses in the right direction, give them visibility, help them amplify what they do so that they can both empower themselves and also their communities. So that's what I do for short.
Wow, I like that in all the three hats, I could actually tie a web that it's all in terms of training and capacity building.
That's correct.
Yeah, awesome. Amara?
Absolutely. I am Amara Chineme. I am a mentor, community advocate, and huge on entrepreneurship. I run two organizations. One is for-profit, which is JoyMed Healthcare, where we ensure the last mile delivery when it comes to healthcare access and equipment and products. So we ensure that the person who's in the outskirts or outskirts of Nairobi or within East Africa can be able to get access to healthcare products and services. And as well as Empower Her Venture, which is a nonprofit organization where we ensure that caregivers gain skills especially skills that they can help them to start their own businesses, do the table banking, save money, and just be able to take care of their children with disability. We're very big on advocacy as well, and that's why I'm a community advocate and champion. And when it came to Art of Dialogue, I could not wait to ensure that we come together and do something that the community can also be involved in.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Nice. Dwayne?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dwayne Wharton. I'm coming from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the U.S. I am the president of a mission-driven consulting firm called Just Strategies.
Okay.
We support nonprofit organizations mostly and foundations in helping them lead the change that they want for themselves and for the community. A strong piece of that is around community advocacy, really trying to elevate community voice around issues and then helping them with the strategies to advance it through policies and et cetera.
Oh, wow.
And with those nonprofits and foundations, helping them to really understand issues from the perspective of people with lived experiences and then shape their goals and strategies and efforts really around how they support those people and those issues.
All right. I can see here that the three of you, although coming from different parts of the world, all connect on one thing. And I would say that thing is in terms of empowering communities or empowering people really to achieve or lead. I think maybe I would want to start because, I mean, we all met somewhere. And I guess our audiences are like, okay, how did we even come up with this panel? So maybe we can start with Amara. You invited Politikali Konekted to the Art of Dialog, and perhaps we would want to share with our audience and tell us, like, how did we come to the Art of Dialogue Festival? What were you thinking about when you conceptualized this?
I think I'll go back to being a Mandela Washington Fellow. I am an alumna for 2023, and this is the platform that I got to meet both Zion and Dwayne, and we've developed an understanding over the past few years to a point where we've collaborated with each other and others within the network. And I believe you're also a Mandela Washington Fellow.
I was about to say,
Mandela Washington Fellow, and that is the grass umbrella. Actually, that is the umbrella that connects each and every one of us seated here, because at one point we went through an exchange alumni program that enabled us to basically amplify our leadership skills. And this particular program has definitely enabled more than 700 each year people from Africa to benefit and also have some sort of exchange with US citizens like Dwayne and be able to bring them to their home country. So with this particular project with Art of Dialogue, it came and was born from having that connection with Dwayne, which has been developed for more than 2 years out of the particular mainstream. And I'll let Dwayne also explain how he joined the Mandela Washington group, because he is part of it. Out of that mainstream, I was seeking people that I can be able to put together for different projects within Africa. I'm very passionate about collaboration. And when I see potential in different people, I find ways to see some sort of synergy for them to partner and collaborate together.
I like that.
Yes, I did partner Dwayne with another particular fellow, but for the Art of Dialogue, it was the first time that we partnered together. And this is because I'm very passionate about advocacy and also just having that practice when it comes to good governance. And when I saw what happened last year during the 25th of June, the Gen Z protest, it was, well, I thought it was worldwide until I went to Harvard for another fellowship a few months ago. A lot of people have not heard about it. Even in Philadelphia, I was like, did you hear about the Gen Z protest? And they were like, no, we haven't really had media cover what is happening in Kenya. And it got me so mad. And I was like, this is why we need to amplify everything that happened within Kenya. And why? A lot of people only look at the particular protest with the face of what happened at the protest. But the why is not really delved into to get a better understanding. Okay, why did the Gen Z wake up one morning and decide we do not want this to happen.
Yeah.
And even within Nigeria, I do remember they did see the protest happening and they wanted to join in. And what I can say is with effective communication, which is what we want to do with Art of Dialogue, having it very clear for people to understand why are we seated at the table and what are we talking about. That is what Art of Dialogue is about, to bring youth together, to have that responsible media and them knowing how to say what they need to say to reach the stakeholders that they need to bring on the table.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that, Amara was able to visit with us in Philadelphia as part of the project as well. So we visited a few different organizations, one, WHYY, our media company, part of the NPR network, which is now having its funding cut in the U.S. We can talk about that later. But also with the Public Defender's Office and also with its program out of Temple University called Poppin'. And these are all youth-serving and youth-connected organizations focusing on advocacy through media, and also just being peers for people who are experiencing similar issues. During that time, we had a call that was virtual for us in Philadelphia and with a number of youth in Kenya, being able to talk about some of the similarities and experiences that youth are having, and ultimately help inform the time that we will be spending here in Kenya. So we had the 2-day convening, and we're really so happy that you and Chaka were able to come and actually share your wisdom with these young advocates and activists. And out of that, we had a number of takeaways, and young people were really able to express what they wanted for themselves and what the challenges were for achieving those things as well. So, and that's pretty much what is here.
Wow. Maybe I could go to Zion. Zion, based on what we're talking about in terms of the dialogue and youth, and you're working in youth in Kano State. There's something, and I don't know whether it is a Kenyan thing or it's also happening in Nigeria, in terms of when the youth are speaking, the political classes like, you guys don't even know anything, so we'll push you out of the room. Is that something similar that you experience in Nigeria? And how have you in the community maybe made some headways to ensure that youth voices are actually heard?
Good question. So, of course, most of the challenges that the youth in Kenya face are similar to the ones we face. I was discussing with a young man at the event, and he said, you guys need to come and get some balls from us in Kenya. Like, we got into the parliament, because I'm sure he was trying to reflect on the NSAS movement, where we tried to get the government to do what we want, what is right, and somehow they tend to clamp down on us, and they kind of get us to surrender, to succumb. But he was just sharing with me how that in Kenya, they had to go to the parliament and they took what was theirs and all that. I'm like, same challenges we face. So we have all of these challenges, but then one of the things I do to encourage young people is to first discover themselves, find their identity. So when you find your identity, you become so confident in yourself that you don't just give into, you don't give into the fears and the intimidation that they want to subject you to. That's not to mean that you just go out there and just do anything and help. Just start with doing something in your community. It now begins to build your capacity, and then begins to see other people see you as a leader. So when you speak, they listen. You are now influencing others to follow, to toe that right path that you're following. So what I do basically within Z Learning Annex is to help these young people discover themselves. A lot of them came to my platform without any sense of confidence, had low esteem, but today some of them are leading beautiful projects, either in the business space or in the civic engagement space. So we start with all of these things, and you never can tell. I tell them, hey, you might not be in government today, you might not be in politics today, but let's start the journey. We are equipping them with the right tools, with the right mentorship, and some of them we send them to schools, we send them to get some skills, so they're better empowered, because we believe that when they're better equipped and empowered, then when they go out there, people cannot just easily sway them away or get them, succumbed
I
to
like that
yeah.
because there's a saying that says, it's better to teach a man how to fish than give him fish. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're teaching them how to fish and starting from getting to even learn themselves. Because it's easily to get manipulated or even get coerced, or so many things that have happened. Like I could say in the Kenyan context, we saw this powerful Gen Z movement. And then shortly after, we just saw fear. There was fear, and there was like let me just say, moving backwards, and everyone thinking that, okay, no, protest is not the way. And maybe I want to turn my question to Dwayne, because before even the Gen Z protest or such a revolution, I think from our side of the world, we saw America really come in arms around the COVID period, where there was I don't know whether I'd call it a revolution, but it was more of like civic uprising against police brutality.
Correct.
Now the question is, and the question we always get is that, did the protest actually turn into something? Like, were there any gains from that?
Yeah. We talked about this a bit during the Art of Dialog, and understanding the Gen Z protests and the power behind that, and the feeling of being empowered right now is very similar to what we felt in 2020, where people who finally, I think for Black people in America, we always have known that the relationship with the police is very complicated. The notion of serving and protecting on one hand, but also the oppressive nature of policing in the country as well. And to be harmed by police is nothing new to us. And in 2020, there was the videotaping of the murder of George Floyd, and it was widely televised. And at that moment, many other Americans began to finally believe Black people, who have been saying this the entire time, that the police are killing us. So we did see mass protests. We saw lots of efforts being put forth around, quote unquote, defunding the police. We saw lots of corporations and institutions like universities making commitments to finally address the race problem that exists, the inequities that exist across every single indicator in the United States. Since then, we've seen a tremendous backlash. I think you can argue that the outcomes of the last presidential election largely were informed by people who were pushing back and using that as a platform to not only stall progress, but to advance another agenda totally. So my warning to the folks here is that it's a very fragile momentum that has to be maintained, that we've seen the commitments either be unfulfilled or even reversed, actually, and policies and laws being passed that really do away with any potential progress. So it's a long struggle, and folks are still committed to it, but certainly a lot of the air has been let out of the balloon, and enthusiasm has been lost. But we're still fighting.
Now, but and the Art of Dialogue, we had, I think, about 40 participants. And I just want to, the word dialogue, especially in Kenya, when we hear the word dialogue, it's normally seen sometimes as political negotiation, in terms of when the countries are unrest, they're like, oh, you guys, let's all come and dialogue. But then the real agenda is normally left out of the window. So Amara, maybe I'm keen to hear, like, what were the youths or the participants in the Art of Dialogue? What are some of the things that were coming out in the 3 days? Yeah, in the 3 days, what are some of the things that were coming out from the participants on the Art of Dialogue? What is it that the youths know what they want, or is it that they know what they don't want?
What I can say, the conversation started way before the 19th of August. We had a round table on the 28th of July in Philadelphia, where we invited quite a number of youth to join us online. And we did have them speak on what they wanted to see for the Art of Dialogue on ground. And with that, I'd say that we had over 50 youth join us during the 2 days of convening. And a lot more have given their feedback in terms of what they'd want to see in the next 3 years. And so I'd say that what we really wanted to accomplish with the Art of Dialogue is to ensure that there's a safe space for youth to freely speak and actually idealize and have a way that they can communicate in a way that if we bring the stakeholders on the table, are they going to be heard? And is there going to be that change that they're seeking to see? So I'd say that from 19th, we brought artists, musicians, people who are in the field of film, showcase and tell us their stories. We had an active panelists that were there to really tell us, okay, this is what we went through on ground as people who are filmmakers and have our movies out there. This is what we went through. However, this is what we want to see in terms of peace building and ensuring that there's that communication towards this is the change we want. How do you post on X? Do you have some sort of responsibility and have you fact checked what you're posting on X to begin with? Are you sure that this is what is happening on your end? So we did want to also ensure that some of their youth and their ideology and how they want to put it out there is in a way that can be understood, can be met, and can cause that ripple of change.
Yeah, I like that. So you're basically teaching them how to package exactly what they're feeling, because there's a lot of rage tweeting and rage videos that can easily fan something else. You can end up going into a state of anarchy just through focusing on rage alone. And I think there's something that we hold dear here at Politikali Konekted is that indeed protest is a right. It's anchored in the Constitution, but it's not the only way to advocate for change. So maybe Dwayne, you can tell us as a facilitator at the Art of Dialogue, what kind of strategies were you helping maybe the young people? You know, you're hearing all this feedback from them. What kind of strategies or advice are you sharing with these young people in the room?
Yeah, I'm going to say for me, the biggest takeaway was that the youth in the room recognize that they have a urgency and an energy and also a hell of a lot of creativity. Nice. And that they are looking for mentorship and leadership from people who know how to make change.
Okay.
So there is a needed partnership and mentorship between generations for sure.
Okay.
The 4 areas, because we actually had them engage in some activities to help identify what are the positive community assets that exist from institutions to local leaders. And please name them so that we can have a resource for all of you to tap into after the Art of Dialogue workshops end. We also asked them what their vision was for the work, and they came up with 4 specific things around youth and community empowerment, around infrastructure and economic growth, around governments and rule of law, and cultural and social-minded shifts. So under youth and community empowerment, they want to increase youth participation and leadership roles and expanded mental health and social inclusion programs. Under infrastructure and economic growth, they talked about having renovated stadiums and sports tourism growth, but job creations coming through that. Improved roads and health systems and education funding, and also incentives for private sector and multi-sector collaboration. Very concrete things. Wow. They know what they want. In terms of governance and rule of law, they want to uphold the Bill of Rights, and they want police and judiciary reforms, transparency in public financing and donor engagement, more merit-based appointments, and consistent public consultation. And finally, because they're a bunch of artists and activists, they talked about cultural and social mindset shifts. So ending colorism and tribalism, and of course, back to police brutality. They asked for protection for artists and creatives, and that they just want to promote empathy and diversity and inclusion for them and for the needs.
That is so comprehensive. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about...
You just had to ask them. They know what they want.
I'm thinking about when you see some of the narratives that come out, or let me say some of the speeches and outbursts that come out from our political leaders and some people who we see as these are our leaders, these are our members of parliament. I remember around the time during the Gen Z protests and even afterwards, where people were still calling for accountability for some of the government actions. It was more, there's a point even some of our members of parliament were speaking to our parents, so speaking over the youth and telling the parents, speak to your children. Your children don't know how things are working, so speak to them, ask them to stay home. And I'm just wondering, like, if right now, just from the Art of Dialogue, all these comprehensive things have come out, how better can we facilitate a wider dialogue to ensure that this information gets to the hands of the people who actually implement this change? Because yes, we can talk about everything that we want, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with the people we send into our parliament. The buck stops with the people who are elected or appointed in the executive. So how would you see the Art of Dialogue, like maybe supporting such insights to go into practice? I could give that to any of you. Go ahead.
I think I'd just begin by stating that it's really important for us to see that the youth right now, especially over 18, do have their mindset. And when you're dealing with Gen Z, you need to have a lot of patience and understanding. These are people who are fast-paced and they know what they want and they're ready to sacrifice what it takes for them to get there. I know definitely for the next election, we'll have a lot more Gen Z come out to vote. And so I would advise the government to definitely put a chair for the youth to sit on so that they can have a dialogue that actually includes the youth. We cannot have people over 50 stating that within the age of 18 and 25 do not have a voice. So it's really important that the voice of the youth is recognized, it is heard, and it's taken into account because a lot of them only make the noise because they're not being heard. And when they come to the dialogue, you can see what they're presenting. Actual facts and actual
Down
change that they want to see.
And
maybe, absolutely. So
Zion?
So like while I was speaking at the event, I did an acronym for dialogue that could just encapsulate what it really talks about. I talked about the doors, how that in trying to build protection around us with walls, walls are good to protect us, but then we still have to carve out a space where we can have interaction. So the youth having interaction even with people in government, there's a door. I can cross over to you, you two can cross over to me. That's the D for the dialogue. Then I is interest. A lot of times we talk about some self-serving leaders not having the interests of the people at heart. But then if we all begin to have interest, I have your best interest at heart, you have mine at heart, then it tells me that you care for me. And the moment I see that you care for me, I want to also reciprocate. So that's for I. Then the A is to appreciate what we do, appreciate our skills, appreciate our work. We appreciate the government, appreciate what we do. And then when we see what they do good, we also come out to appreciate that. Because a lot of times, there's so much negative energy out there and people just want to talk about the negative things. But when we now start seeing this appreciation come into play, what happens? Everybody, our guard is kind of let down. We now behave, we have this human connection, which is very fundamental. And then we have the L, which talks about listening. We want to be heard, just like she's talked about. The reason why most young people protest is because they feel they're not listened to. They just want to be talked at, not listened to. So if we have people listening to one another, then there's conversation. Then we have the O, which is being open-minded. G is get into spaces. So come into my space and know what I'm feeling, know what I'm doing. If I don't get into your spaces, be it religious space, your tribal space, if I don't come into your space, then it's difficult for me to understand or to even empathize with you. Then we have the U, we talked about unlearning. We've got to unlearn some of those things we've been told maybe by our elders or our ancestors, and just begin to, now I've unlearned some of those myths or some of those lies. Once I begin to unlearn, then I start understanding you. I now understand, okay, yeah, you might be of different religion, of different tribe, but we are still connected. That's the you. And then I said to them that after going through all of these DIALOGU, then it's easy for us to embrace one another.
Yeah.
That's the E. We embrace one another. I come into the room. The moment we came into this place, we felt embraced.
Yeah.
And that's why you see us having these conversations. So if we can begin to embrace one another, irrespective of our religion, our tribe, then it becomes, and that's what Zealand Annex was built on, just embracing one another. I was sharing with them my story, how that in 2004, we're caught in this ethno-religious crisis in the northern part of Nigeria. Our house was burned down by the rioters.
Oh, no.
We lost 2 of our dear friends. Houses, property were burned down. People were killed and all that. But so many years afterwards, I asked myself, should I retaliate or should I reconcile? I was left with these 2 choices. Should I go about promoting hate? Because I had the right to promote hate because I was hurt. We went from up to ground zero. But I said, no, let's reconcile people. Let's bring tribes together. Let's bring religions together. Let's bring genders together. And that was how Zealand Annex started. And today we're promoting peace. When you come to our platform, you can barely tell who a Muslim is, who the Christian is. Everybody just connected. And I think that's what dialogue should be about, yeah.
I really like that, and that is so powerful. Actually, as you're speaking, I'm just realizing what you're communicating is really, these are the ingredients for a very meaningful dialogue. Because if you're not open-minded, if you're not getting into spaces to get to emphasize with all these different people that I may not be of your same maybe tribe, race, or even religion, but when I get into your space and understand how you live, is only when I get to see the human. You
That's
know,
right.
I stop seeing you from this lens. I like that acronym.
Yeah,
It's really
Absolutely.
Dwayne, you were telling us.
Yeah, I think we are not the youth here.
Yeah.
We are relaying the messages that
they
we heard.
Yeah.
I applaud you for even having us on the show to talk about Art of Dialogue.
Yeah.
I also encourage you to make sure that you have youth
More
sitting in
youth,
these chairs. And being able to voice, their concerns for themselves. And again, if we ask them, they will tell us and they'll show us the way.
Yeah.
So.
And how do we get now? Because some, like you said, listening and the door.
Yeah.
How do we get national government or people in powerful positions get to hear this insight and turn it into something important?
I think if I can share the exemplary of what happened in Rwanda in 1994 during the genocide and 100 days of a lot of turmoil, it took the people and the government to come together for change. And when they did, every year between April, the first week, we're reminded to remember what happened then because everyone else was quiet. And so I feel like it does take that continuous effort to want to be on the table. And as we continue with our banner, because dialogue is just the beginning, action is where it requires a lot more of the effort. So we want to mobilize as much of youth to ensure that their actions also speak as loud as we want the dialogue to be enacting some sort of change. And so with Rwanda, you can see that the people who literally woke up one day, there was the Hutu and the Tutsi having a fight against each other. And it was an ethnic war that went so many days. And they woke up one day after the intervention of the government and stopped killing each other. And they had to reconcile. They had to start over. They had to rebuild their city, which is one of the most amazing, beautiful, cleanest cities in Africa.
Yeah.
And right now they're way ahead because they had to put their strife aside for the betterment of their country.
Yeah.
And so I feel like even with Kenya, we are at an age and point where we can come to that conclusion. And it just takes, I will use the analogy of the camel that puts the nose in the tent and tells the owner, I am cold. I need to put my shoulders in. And when the camel puts the shoulders in, they put their whole entire body and they say, you know what, boss, I am cold. This is how we can have that seat on the table. And it takes a lot of great effort. But I feel that what we've already started is already making that momentum. And we will get there in time. So let's share what we need to see as a change.
Yeah, I like that. And I think for me, I'm just feeling more and more empowered that a lot more youth actually know what they want in a very comprehensive manner. And it's just a matter of finding a way to give all these insights to the people who matter. And if the people who matter do not hear, then building capacity in these youths to actually lead that change, right? So now that we're coming to the end of the podcast, maybe I would ask each one of you to just give us a parting shot on youth empowerment and maybe just leading the change from where we're at. Because not all of us would be a member of parliament, not all of us would be a president of a country, but we can really lead change from where we sit and in our community. So you can speak to our audiences and let them know a parting shot. Will start from Zion right there.
Okay, it has been an amazing conversation. So my parting shot to young people is, first of all, learn how to connect with one another. We are first humans before we are business owners, CEOs. We're first humans. And just like I was sharing with the young people at the Art of Dialog event, that it should be first connection before collaboration, because I talked about cross-border collaboration. But I said, you don't just see someone doing something great and the next thing you're thinking about is, let me just collaborate and let's see what we can benefit. No, let it be a human connection with a person. And then there should be a bonding before business. So I'm always advocating for that human connection because that's where it starts from. And talking about getting to spaces, I tell young people, hey, invest in traveling, but travel does not have to be physical travel. It could be, just understanding other people's tribes and religion. I came to Kenya, and for me, it has begun to open my eyes to I need to visit more African countries. Yeah. Because some of the things we just have been told, some of them are not even true. I came here and I felt so much at home. I didn't even really browse about Kenya to have an expectation. I just came with an open mind. I said, let me just come see what's happening here. And it feels like home. I don't want to even leave. And the connections I've even created, young people doing amazing things. One of the people I connected with recently has a cancer, safe place for cancer patients and all. And he's a cancer champion. He's doing an amazing thing. And we have now built a kind of a partnership where we can help them to get funding. Myself and George were there, and we're able to have that conversation around how to help them. So it's about just helping people out there. You might not be in that situation, but who says we don't all have our problems? We have all come out of our problems, and we can only elevate others out of their own problems as well. So my simple message to you is that just be human. Just try to connect with people and see a way to help people, to give them hope. And then you begin to inspire the positive change that we need. Thank you.
Amara?
Well, what I can say in a nutshell is you as the youth, your voice matters. Not just your voice, but your talent, your capability. You can amplify your art in so many different ways. When you practice it, amplify it as much as possible, because there are people who are listening. We are listening. So ensure that you channel and your power is in your hands. So definitely ensure that you're out there mobilizing a lot more of your peers to ensure that their talents are out there as well. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I would actually encourage an openness between the youth and also for people of my generation.
Okay.
And I think I'll speak specifically to my generation. I'm going to shout out my good friend, George Jackson. I remember showing up to a Black Lives Matter meeting by myself, and I walk in and George is sitting there. Not surprised, but I was, because we didn't talk. We could have rode together. We lived close to each other, but we certainly didn't communicate that we both were going to attend, but it was something that was within each of us individually that moved us there. When we show up, we are clearly the oldest people, and I would say probably one of the few cisgendered heterosexual men that were in the space. And when we show up in the space, and we both are leaders in our own rights within the community and the work that we do, but in that space, we don't need to assert ourselves as leaders. We needed to sit back and listen and be led by people who may have a different identity than ours, and certainly were younger than us, and to be supportive of them. And I'll fast forward to a protest that was happening at our city hall around police and justice, and there were counter protesters there who were yelling at the young people, and the young people who I would say had less maybe self-control and were very emotional, as they should be, about how they have been targeted and treated. And there was this exchange that was continuing to heat up. And what I ended up doing was inserting my body in between these counter protesters and the young people. And the young people didn't know me, but someone who they were more closely tied to and aligned to vouched for me, like, no, that's Brother Dwayne. He's good people. Like, he's here, like, he's good. And I would not let those counter protesters get into the space with these young people.
Yeah.
And when I did that, there were Black police officers who joined in. And we formed a line that protected those young people from these counter protesters. And they were able to voice what they needed to be heard in ways that were safe.
Yeah.
We have to do that as people who are older that have more stability in their lives, more respectable presence, if you want to frame that. I was not worried about my self being in harm's way, because I am an able-bodied, full adult male that presents as someone with authority. So I was in less jeopardy than those young people. I had to use my power in service of them.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. Get out the way, let them lead, and then protect them and serve them in ways that are going to benefit all of us.
Yeah. Whew. That is so powerful. I am just looking at, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm just going back to June 25th and seeing how the older generation would have protected our young people, so that we wouldn't be losing as many lives as we lost. So that's such a powerful message, and thank you for sharing that. We've come to the end of the podcast, and as you can see here, we're all from different parts of the world, but there's one thing that connects us, is that we want to lead the change, number one. Number two, it's not just about us, it's also about all the people in our communities. And it's how we've connected here. I could say primarily through the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I'm also an alumni of the fellowship. I did it in 2019. But more importantly, it's because we have a shared vision here, and I can see a passion that drives through our veins to ensure that we're not only advocating for youth, but we're also ensuring meaningful change in our communities. Because what's more important is to leave this place better than we found it. Sure. So if this episode inspired you, if it made you start to think about your role in your community, or if it made you think of someone, please do yourself a favor and like, subscribe, and even share it with a friend. And we'll see you next time on a screen near you.
Yeah. Thanks, Diana.
Awesome.
I just need a shot.